All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Studio Series 86 Commander Class Ultra Magnus. Yeah, I'd say this is a figure that I've been excited about for a while, but really we had a pretty quick turnaround on on this toy between when it was actually announced and when it actually came out. I even saw a lot of people get it earlier than I did, but I just got mine yesterday, and wow, he's a really really fun toy. That top 10 list for the year is getting real crowded. But yeah, no, we finally are getting a sort of more proper Ultra Magnus. This is going back to the style of, kind of the cartoon style of there is no like smaller white Optimus Prime. It just transforms straight from tractor trailer mode to the robot mode, all things included. And yeah, it looks pretty good in his car carrier mode here. Obviously comes with a number of accessories here. Comes with the little shoulder launchers here that have a little missile that plugs in. Also comes with a bunch of blast effects. These are, again, just a repaint of, I believe, Omega Supreme was the first one that these ones came with. And what basically the reason that you take the missiles out here is so you can do something like this, where you plug a blast effect into the gun and then plug the missile into the blast effect and have it look like the missile is like launching out, which is kind of a neat effect. It only really works with like the one, maybe two of them, because the missiles can't quite get into the other blast effects. Yeah, like it works fine with that, but like anything else is like, oh, it's a little bit, okay, never mind. Works with that one. Does it work with this one? Maybe I'm just completely, no, actually, yeah, no, never mind. Ignore me. It it works with all of them except for obviously the end bits here. So it's fine. It's nice to get new blast effects. It's ones that we've of course had before, but new blast effects, new blast effects. It's got, like these ones usually do. It does have a bit of painting on it where it's got kind of this like gray to make it all like smoky and stuff like that. And it's kind of a light gray to use for that, but I think it still works. But yeah, I'll just put the blast effects off to the side because it's the same blast effects we've seen. They do the same things that they've always done since Siege. But yeah, no, so you've got the two little shoulder launchers here, which if you want to store in this mode, he can't do the thing, unfortunately, where they plug into the front, because I know some versions have it where these were actually in the front in vehicle mode. They do just plug onto the side here, which honestly is probably the look I'd prefer anyway, so it doesn't really bother me, but worth mentioning. But yeah, that looks pretty good. And then he also comes with two guns here, which I believe are done in translucent plastic, and then like the handle is a separate piece. Like, I don't know, there's like I don't know. There is like, the handle is definitely a separate piece, because if you look at the tip of the gun, this is translucent. So I think it's translucent and the whole thing is painted silver, and then the handle is like a separate piece. Not exactly sure why they did it that way. I think they probably just needed more things to put on the the translucent like clear sprue or whatever. But if you want to store these, you've got these peg holes on the side of the like arms here that you can plug it in like that, which is not unobtrusive. Like, it still sticks out. I wouldn't actually mind it that much if it weren't for the fact that the guns just like point into the rocket launchers. You can also, on the in the instructions, it actually shows them flip backward. And I actually tend to prefer that, just to have it as a place to store them. Obviously, it'd be better if they stored completely unobtrusively hidden somewhere, but since it's such like a big vehicle mode anyway, I don't think it really messes with the look all that much to have those on the side there. And again, Ultra Magnus, though the cab of the truck is very earthy, the car carrier like trailer has always been kind of like a weird abstract car carrier. Like, it's kind of Cybertronian, kind of whatever, maybe just like futuristic in the same way that a lot of the 86 Autobots vehicle modes were. So, I think that works well enough. But yeah, no, it's a really nice car carrier mode. He looks very nice in the cab here. It can rotate only about that far, unfortunately, before it bumps into this plate here. You can, I guess, kind of get it so it goes over that, but it really does mess with it. Like, it's pushing it off kilter. So it only really goes about that far, which is not as much of a turn radius as I would have liked, but I can deal. It is attached on the bottom here, kind of loosely, honestly. Like, it attaches with this piece here, which does kind of clip into place, and then you can kind of extend it out, but it is not hard to pull it off of there. You do leave it attached for transformation, so it's not like again, there's no smaller white Optimus Prime, and you don't have to parts form it for transformation. You do leave it attached there, but that can be kind of annoying sometimes, since if you're trying to leave it attached and it just falls off, which is why, I'll show this off when I start doing transformation, but I usually try to like push and lock that in as soon as possible just to make it easier. But it can, if you want it to be a shorter cab, it obviously has no, turn radius at all, but you could do that. It doesn't like go up like the, I believe the Combiner Wars one, when you like compress the cab, it actually extended up a little bit. So all the wheels weren't really sitting on the ground anymore. And there's no like kickstand, or not really kickstand. There's no stand or anything for when you take the cab off. If you want the trailer just sitting, it kind of does just like sit on the ground like that, which it's fine. It's not that big a deal, but again, worth mentioning. But yeah, no, really nice looking vehicle mode. If you want, you can do some of the functionality, sort of. Like he's got these pieces back here, which actually don't really have to move for transformation. So this is pretty much just dedicated for this feature of folding down the ramps so you can get a car in there. We can just bring in, let's bring in, honestly, he can't really fit most of them. Like if you bring in Studio Series Cup, it's like, oh yeah, that fits until we get to these raised back pieces here, and then it kind of gets stuck there. And Cup is a pretty small deluxe, so, or at least in vehicle mode, so that's it's like, obviously you can just pretend that he did that and put Cup back here, and it fits fine. It looks fairly good. But in terms of actually going up into the ramp, who have I found that it actually works with? It does work with, this is the Thrilling 30 RC. She can get in there because she's got a fairly slender vehicle mode. I've only really tried it out on the 1986 crew, the movie Autobots. So it probably does work with some of the deluxe cars. Let me try it with Sideswipe actually. Let's see. Yeah, he's just barely thin enough to do it, because he is kind of a wide car, but he doesn't have like the little bits kind of sticking out like the Cup does. So you can actually get there with Sideswipe. I think that works pretty well. Just to try out another, I mean, obviously if it works with Sideswipe, it's going to work with the Datsun mold as well. Just because it's a much thinner car than the Lamborghini mold. But yeah, no, so that it works with some things. It doesn't work with Cup. It doesn't really work with Blur, and then anything bigger than that, obviously it's not going to work with, just because Blur also gets a little bit wider at the end here. So it works with some things, but maybe not everything you'd want it to. And then you can also, I guess, sort of do the feature where you actually have it extend down. I guess you'd have to rotate these around for this, but you can untab these, and then at what's going to be the shoulder ratchets here, just kind of click it one down, and you can do that. I mean, there's not really a ramp here because there's like a huge gap. I mean, even this ramp, it's like, okay, it bumps into the bottom of the car before it touches the wheels. The ramp would have to be at a less steep angle and longer, but whatever, you can play feature that. But it's like, okay, yeah, I guess that kind of works, but you're really having to stretch the imagination there that he's getting over that hump there. But like I said, even if you're not using it to like actually drive cars into place there, you can just place the cars onto the top there, and it works fairly well. He's got like some good spots to sit there. We can get Blur in the bottom here. Why not see if we can get Blur in RC maybe? I think maybe that's a little bit too much. Yeah, let's get Cup and RC on the bottom. That works. And then we can get Blur on top, so that his nose can kind of stick out the front there. And then, why not? He'd need the car carrier more than most because he can't drive around as much on his own. But you can, because of the guns here, you can kind of get Perceptor sitting up there as long as he's sitting on the guns himself. So you can, carry some deluxes and then close this up. It's a fine feature. It's just, it's always looks a little bit silly. But if you want him to be a car carrier, he can carry some cars. But yeah, no, that's pretty much it for the vehicle mode. In terms of comparisons, here he is with, the standard one we already kind of show him off with. Here he is with Sideswipe, and then why not the Datsun mold, so you can see what he looks like with average size deluxes there. Here he is with Earthrise Optimus Prime with his trailer, so you can see how that stacks up. And then specifically, if we want to look at the cabs together, You can see, yeah, you know, it's comparable. It's like this one is a little bit wider and a little bit shorter overall, but the wheels actually kind of line up. And yeah, they look like two different kind of similarly styled trucks that could both exist in the same world. You can see it's quite a bit wider than Earthrise Prime, but no, I think that they actually look good together. I mean, he's actually a little bit more proportioned how an actual truck would be, rather than, you know, Earthrise Prime having like all of the you know, like the huge legs in the back here, because if you look at real semi trucks, they're pretty hollow in the back. Like it's pretty much just a frame with wheels. Couldn't really house a, you know, fully functioning robot legs. But yeah, that's what they look like together. Let's see who else here. Well, let's get him with the previous versions of Ultra Magnus. Here he is with the Kingdom version and the Combiner Wars version. I don't know if we're getting both of these on here at the same time. There you go. So you can see what they look like together. I would show, you know, I would show them off with just the individual cab here, but it's kind of a pain, weirdly, to take it out of the Kingdom one's trailer, even though this is the one that's supposed to detach for transformation, and this is the one that's supposed to, like, kind of stay the whole time. It's way more of a pain to detach this one than it is to detach this one. And for this one, you literally need to, like, undo a screw to detach it because it's supposed to stay in place. But yeah, just so you can see how it looks like, how they all stack up there. Like I said, a little bit wider than the Kingdom cab, but a little bit shorter and not as long. So yeah, I think that he's got the best looking one, and he also kind of hits the right mark for the blue, in my opinion, whereas like this one was too light and too green, and this one was a bit too dark. This one is like just right. So yeah, no, I think that he's definitely the best looking one there. Who else? Let's get him with Rodimus Prime, obviously, so you can see what his wheels compressed here. So we can see what the two of them look like together, and I think that looks pretty good. Yep, works for me. Let's see, for another one of his sort of rivals in one of the series, here he is with Titan's Return 6-shot, just so you can see how they look together in with the, you know, kind of car mode for him. All right, let's get the rest of the 86 crew here. So we've got Springer, let's get Wheelie, Thrilling 30 RC, Blur, and where did Cup go? There's Cup. Cup, and I guess Perceptor, because he's here. And then, oh, let's see about getting Rodimus on here, but maybe not full Rodimus, just Rodimus's car. And yeah, there we go. We have once again completed all the the 1986 movie cast. You know, we've had them all for a while, but getting better versions of them. I think the next one I would like to replace, apparently, according to leaks and stuff, we're supposed to be getting a Studio Series 86 Springer sometime in 2024, which is exciting because, God, do I not like that mold. So, yeah, no, I think he looks pretty good in vehicle mode there with everybody. Ooh, just bumped Prime's trailer onto the floor. But yeah, to get on to transformation, we can take off the weapons and stuff, obviously, and just put those off to the side. They do have to come off for transformation. Usually what I do, this is not exactly the order that the instructions go in, but what I do, like I said, is I try to prioritize like compressing that cab as soon as possible, and there's a few steps you have to do to make that kind of happen. So first thing you want to do is take these side panels here and just untab them. And I find sometimes they have a hard time staying tabbed in. It's doing it fine right now, but sometimes, like, especially on this side, I have a hard time getting that to stay tabbed in. It will like pop up like that every once in a while, but I don't know. It seemed to have stopped doing it, so maybe that problem solved. I don't know, but you just want to take these panels and rotate them and tab them into the legs like that, and then rotate the actual triangle panel in like that. Do that on both sides, and then take these red panels here on the interior and then untab them from what will be the waist piece and just double hinge them back like that, and they'll kind of, you know, click into place. And then from there, what we actually want to do is take this this waist piece here, this white piece, and just double hinge that up onto the waist so that you can take this. This is gonna be hard to show off. Again, you're kind of supposed to do this later, but I do it now so that I can just compress the cab and not have to worry about it falling out. But this panel right here actually rotates around So you want to rotate it to the inside. See, it's already coming undone, the truck cab. Rotate it to the inside like that. And all of those things you have to do before you can get underneath the truck here and just push in this part to flip up this little waist piece, because it's like impossible to grab otherwise. And then once you've done that, if I can actually get it here, it's not usually this much of a pain. Come on, there we go. Get that folded up into place like that, because now you can actually take the cab and, you know, leave it locked in and compress it on this track, which feels a lot more secure, and it's not going to be wobbling around. And you have to do all of that before you can flip up that waist piece. Otherwise, like I said, it's kind of just impossible to pull out later. So I usually start with all that and then doing other like little finishing details, like the feet here, the wheels are actually on a like double hinge, so they do a slight double hinge up just so the wheels are no longer touching the ground, and on his feet in robot mode, so he doesn't have to have, like, you know, the Kingdom version's stupid like a sculpted ankles, even though he also has ankle tilts. So avoids that problem altogether. So yeah, we'll do that. Then we can untab these sections here for the arms. I usually just take this section right now and just flip it over to the other side just like that, and then untab the arms from each other in the top here and the bottom, and just flip them over on these panels, and then we can just focus on the arms here. Then on each one, you want to do a few different things. You want to take this white panel, which I guess is kind of a cheat, because like the implication is that like the white section, it continues up until this point, which it doesn't. This is just like a white painted section on this panel, but whatever. But yeah, you want to take that and then flip that around like this, and it'll click into place. And then you want to, I'm going to show it off on this side, but I'll do it on this side because it's easier to see. There's this panel right here that kind of compresses up into this block right here. Then you want to take what will be the forearm panels and open up this panel, and then kind of similar to the Combiner Wars one, double hinge it down and then close that back up. Then you want to take these two little pieces here that are kind of tabbed into the side, keeping it straight, and just rotate these out to the side, which unlocks this, which then allows you to take this whole section and swing it around into the shoulder block, and that creates the arms and kind of builds his little like shoulder stack thing here, which I think is a really neat way of doing it. And then again, we'll just do that on both sides here. Already flipped in that panel. Flip that around. And sometimes it can be kind of tricky to get these unlocked. So if you're having trouble, I usually just like wiggle this a little bit to loosen it up, but it wasn't too bad that time. Then flip that around, and there we have the arms. We can kind of just fold these off to the side for now, just to kind of keep them out of the way. And then what we want to do is take the legs here and take these sections. Make sure you've done all these panels first, and then you can hinge these up. Actually, sorry, before you do that, you want to take these little, I always forget about this, but take these little bits that the arms actually tapped into, and they will slide down on this little slider and then hinge up like that. Then you can take these and click them into place onto the legs here. And then in theory, these panels have a slot here that tabs into this piece on the red piece. It can be kind of tricky to get those in, but you really want to just like press it down here. And you know, this one always sits a little bit more flush than this one for some reason. And you can untab the legs there, but it is supposed to tab in. And then for the legs here, they're actually kind of like the joints at the knee are a little bit like double hinged up to make it a little bit shorter for truck mode. So you want to unhinge that and then bring it up like this, and then you can see there's this tab on this joint here right there that's going to tab into the leg. So you want to get the correct pressure there to tab that into place, and then you can straighten out the rest of the leg. There's the height difference there between the two legs, and just do that on both sides. Obviously, get him standing here. We're definitely going to need to adjust the camera. One sec. See how much we can get on frame here. Yeah, that should be good enough there. But yeah, once you've done this point, then we can work on the cab itself here. Basically, what you want to start with is taking these whole side panels. Oh, still falling off there. Yeah, be a little bit annoying, but once you have it locked in, usually it's fine. I just wasn't really holding it properly. But yeah, you want to untab these side panels and just bring them out to the side. For now, this one on his right can be kind of annoying. There we go. Get that going, and then you can take the front part of the cab here and just untab it and bring it down like that, and then bring up the roof like that. And then we can take these wheel sections, and they'll actually rotate up in like that. And we can take the actual windshield, fold it up into this piece, and then rotate this whole piece around so it sits like that. Take the side panels, fold them down to the side so they sit cleanly. And then you want to take this panel right here and kind of feed it through this section, and then bring it on here to kind of complete the backpack there. And then from there, we can take the wheels from the truck mode and just fold them in just like this, and then bring this whole section down, kind of feed the head through, and then this piece will tab into this tab right here, just like that. And then for the top section here, leave the head tilted back. You take the smokestacks and actually rotate them in just like this, and then bring this whole piece down so it sits over his shoulders. And then you can bring the chest down, and you have to work with the double hinges and make sure that these tabs can line up with these slots here, and just tab it into place pretty cleanly. And then we can rotate up his head. And now before you fold these, like according these panels together, there are these blue panels here that sit on either side of the chest, which they don't really have like a great place to grab them from when you're trying to like unlock them from these panels, because they do clip in pretty securely. What I've found is if you just take this panel on the corner here and just kind of bend it a little bit, then it will kind of unlock that, and that's the easiest way to do that. And then you can just fold that in and then clip those into place, because otherwise it's kind of just impossible. And then you just double hinge these panels the rest of the way up, tabbing them into place. There are a couple tabs on here that I try to pay special attention to. Like these ones sometimes can be kind of tricky. Make sure they're all locked into place. And then to really lock that entire like structure into place, you take these red panels and they'll fold down and just go over these little tabs right here. And there we have Ultra Magnus in his robot mode. And yeah, he looks stunning. I think he looks really great. There is I'd say one kind of obvious part of his aesthetic that I'm not the hugest fan of, and it's taken me a little bit to get used to, because honestly, he's totally perfect if you just erased these sections right here and just compressed the arms in a little bit. He's very wide, and that, you know, that does fit with some designs of Ultra Magnus, but if you're just like looking at the G1 cartoon design, he definitely was not that wide in proportion to the rest of his body. So that does throw me off a little bit, but it, you know, it's fine. I can get these to tab into place properly, but it's something that, you know, just takes a bit of getting used to, and it's worth getting used to, because the rest of his aesthetic is honestly just like almost perfect. Like this is exactly what I would want an Ultra Magnus to look like. Obviously, to complete the look here, we can bring his weapons back, and obviously we've got to get his shoulder launches into place, which just plug on to these panels here. And then in terms of the guns, obviously he can hold them, and that looks good, but they also do both have dedicated storage here on the back. There's two different slots right here, one on the butt plate. Oh yeah, this is, it might have come undone already, but you do have to like untab it for the transformation. That might have been something that I missed actually mentioning, but you know, it usually does it by itself anyway. But yeah, in terms of storage, there's this like wider slot down here and this smaller slot here. The wider slot is meant for this tab on the big gun to plug it in like that, and then the smaller one plugs in the little gun like that. And yeah, that works well enough. You can kind of see the big gun from the back here. I just can't totally fathom why they wouldn't have just A, made these tabs the same size so you could flip them and do whichever we want, and B, made these pieces symmetrical so you could just plug them on both like that. Like there's plenty of space for it. I don't really understand why that decision was made, because that would be a lot cleaner than being able to see it from the front. But as is, it's fine. Like it's not like really that obtrusive. It's just like a kind of a weird choice for me when there seems to be a much more, I would think, obvious and simple solution to do it slightly better. I don't know, weird, but not that huge of a complaint there. But yeah, in terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint. It's pretty expressive here. You can definitely look up quite a bit, look down, although I don't know what he's really looking down at. Like if he's standing with anyone that's like even slight, like it ever occurred to you, like the boxy chest of Ultra Magnus, from this angle, he could not see Sideswipe in any way, shape, or form, because he'd be looking just straight into his own chest. It's fine, but maybe Transformers have like a thing where they can see through themselves. That would, you know, answer the question of like all these characters that have like big kibble chunks on the side of their heads by design. Just like, how do they get peripheral vision? I don't know. It's just something that I think about every once in a while. But yeah, the head's on a pretty decent ball joint there. The shoulders are on a nice ratchet here that rotates around all like that. And then for rotation out to the side, it kind of like unlocks this joint and then folds up like that. It's maybe slightly looser than I'd like it to be. I wish it were kind of like a ratchet rather than like just a friction hinge. But it's not too big a deal. And then also it does kind of like lock into place. I find it, I don't know, this is one of the joints where I'm just like, that could have been done a little bit differently, because I don't like how like unhinges the arm here, but you know, it works, especially if you're just wanting getting his arms like a little bit out to the side. I think that looks fairly good, but it does kind of click into place. But luckily he looks fine with his arms straight up and down anyway, because it's not like they're like really running into his side, since they are like extended out like that. But yeah, so that's that joint. He does have a bicep swivel. It's just a mushroom connection there, and then about 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. The wrists do swivel, although, you know, they're kind of blocked on the one side. But yeah, they do swivel, and then he does have articulated fingers. If you actually open up here, each set of fingers, so just the one pointer finger is one thing, and then the other three fingers are connected. They each have two joints, like one at the lower knuckle and then one at the middle knuckle. So it's like you could get him into like a pointing pose. I don't think it really looks that good as like a pointing hand. It makes it look like he's got like little creepy fingers. So I mean, I usually just leave them balled up into a fist, but it looks decent when it's open. Again, it's just because there's so many joints there, it makes those fingers look like a little bit like skinny compared to the rest of him proportionally. So I usually just leave it as a fist, but you can do that. He has a nice waist cut here. If you have the guns tabbed in, eventually they do run into each other in one direction. Like if you bring it this way, you get about that far before the guns run into each other, but yeah, you know, that's okay. He's got, for his hips, they can go forward, and then this panel can move out of the way as a hip skirt and go forward. Back again, you know, you've got the butt panel there, which will run into the other gun, but you can move it back that far. And then these little side skirts move out to the side, so you can get about that far out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel there. He's got maybe like a degree or two over 90 degrees of bend at the knee. And then if you unlock that knee joint, he gets like one more click. So a slightly, you know, deeper knee bend. I'm just going to take the guns off for now, just so they're not constantly falling off. But, you know, I think either works. It's nice that it does lock into place, so that it only activates that joint at the end if you're wanting to get the little extra piece of movement. And then for the ankles, no forward or backward tilt at all, but they can tilt out to the side about that far. So just enough for like kind of a wide stance, but nothing crazy. This one panel just doesn't like to stay tabbed in. Doesn't really mess with a whole lot, but you can tell when it's untapped. But yeah, so, you know, fairly decent articulation for a big chunky guy like Ultra Magnus. I'm pretty, you know, all right with all that. He also does, I don't know if it's really picking up on camera, he does have pretty nice light piping too, which is something they haven't done in a while. Let's see if I can, yeah, you can see it there. It's got a nice blue tinted eyes there, and they really do glow under like normal lighting conditions. It's not as much when I've got like lights shining on him from this direction, but yeah, no, that works pretty well. Because usually I kind of tend to prefer painted eyes, honestly, just because like when you're not directly shining a light into light piping, the eyes just look kind of like cold and dead. But his works well enough because like the entire back of his, you know, this back section of his head here is clear plastic, so it does carry light well enough that just under normal lighting conditions that his eyes do get to glow a little bit, which is nice. He also does have this pretty neat feature where you can take this section here on his chest, and if you open it up, these will spring open and reveal the matrix chamber. And he's got another little matrix in there, which is, again, like every other version of the matrix that we've gotten over the past few years, very, very similar to the other ones, but not quite the same. I think, you know what I think it is? I think it's because these are, you know, this isn't its own separate mold. I think that it's always just like they're using a, you know, the same or similar CAD model, and then, you know, actually putting it on the sprue of the clear plastic of the figure itself. So it actually, you know, so they don't, it's not like a separate extra accessory. Also, weirdly, was packed upside down in there and is shown upside down in the box. The matrix is supposed to be with these bits pointed up, right? I'm not crazy, because I feel like a lot of figures have it like that. And I always, it just looks wrong to me. But yeah, I've tried out a couple of the other matrices in there. The Rodimus one does not fit, and the Optimus Prime one does fit, but it doesn't really hold in at all. It's just like a very loose connection, so you do kind of have to use this one. and you can see it through the like the window chest there. So usually I honestly take the matrix out, because like for the majority of the time, aside from like a very small period of time, Ultra Magnus does not have the matrix. So I usually just leave it off, but you can kind of see it in there. But I like that whole chest opening gimmick. I think that that's kind of neat. I was a little worried that that would be a little bit too easy to trigger, but this piece really does lock those in pretty well. So yeah, you can just close those up and then close that back up, and it's nice and clean there. You know, it's something that really confused me, because when I saw the images of this guy, I just assumed that these were going to be the windows of the truck mode, because in the actual Ultra Magnus design from the movie, his chest is like entirely opaque, right? Like he doesn't have like window sections here, right? So that's very strange to me. I guess they just wanted you to be able to like see the matrix, but I don't know. You can't see the matrix on Rodimus because, you know, they didn't want to make the entire chest clear. So that's, I don't know, kind of strange to me. It doesn't really matter, just something worth pointing out. I guess another thing worth pointing out is his little antennas were packed separately. They're a nice kind of like firm plastic, so you don't have to worry about them like warping or anything like that. And you just peg them into the side of his head. I haven't tried taking them off since I put them back on, because why would I? But you know, but yeah, no, looks pretty good in terms of comparisons in this mode. Just for the standard deluxe ones, here he is with Sideswipe and Prowl there, just so you can see what he looks like with the Datsun mold. For some leader class comparisons, here he is again with Optimus Prime, but here he is also with Studio Series 86 Grimlock, just so you can see he's a bit taller than Grimlock. So if you're wanting like a good metric of how this guy stacks up with other figures, that's about how it works. So it's like, yeah, Commander class, you know, he is only a little bit taller than a leader, but he's got a lot more complexity of the transformation, more features and stuff like that. I think you're getting a pretty good bang for your buck here. But yeah, that's what he looks like with them. And then for the other Commander class comparison, here he is with Jetfire, who's definitely not going to fit onto frame here. So you can see, yes, quite a bit shorter than Jetfire, but I would say he's got a bit more complexity to the transformation. Honestly, I was like, yeah, when you're looking at him with Jetfire, it's like, okay, this maybe seems like, okay, this you're getting a lot more for, well, technically less money since the prices have increased since then, but it's you know, it's it's fine. He feels comparable with the other kind of recent Commander class figures. Here he is with our two previous versions of Ultra Magnus with the Combiner Wars and Kingdom ones there, and he is the tallest out of the three of them. He is a bit taller than Combiner Wars Ultra Magnus there at the top of the head. He does have the leg extension bits on, but I have it compressed, so he's pretty much the same height right now as the vanilla Ultra Magnus from Kingdom. So you can see quite a bit taller than him, and you can really see it in this mode. It's just like too light, too dark, just right. Love that blue. I think they got the blue just right for the animation there. And then let's get on the rest of the 1986 movie cast here. We got Cup, Blur, Wheelie and RC, if Wheelie's even going to show up on frame there, Perceptor and Springer, and Rodimus. So you can see what they all look like together, and yeah, no, that looks great. Wheelie's kind of hiding in the back there. Yeah, I think that that really works as a display for the 1986 Autobots. He's obviously much bigger than the rest of them, as he should be, but yeah, no, I think that they all look pretty good together. For some of his rivals, like I showed him off with Six Shot before, but here he also is with Galvatron, just so you can see what he looks like with them. And yeah, you know, old leader classes, he's like a tiny bit taller than Six Shot at the eyes, but they're pretty comparable in size there, and obviously towers over Galvatron, but I think that they look good together. And then, yeah, for one more comparison, I'm going to show off the last feature of this guy, which is there. I don't know if this is really worth them having done at all, but he is kind of doing the you know, Studio Series Cup thing of you can rip him apart and recreate the scene where he gets blown up by the Decepticons in the movie. So for the arms here, what you do is you actually have to unfold these, and he's got kind of, these are not Combiner Wars joints, but they're similar mechanism. So you have to extend, like push this piece in here, and then just like pull these off. They're not as easy to get apart as Combiner Wars joints. So then there's one arm, you just do that on both sides here. And then the legs, oof, this is hardly even worth doing, honestly, because they are so tight in there. This side, I've literally have never gotten it on this side, but on this side, I did get it off once. It's annoying because it's like you have to kind of like pry it out like this, but then you're just activating the ankle joint there, but or not ankle, the hip, the thigh swivel and the joints, you know what I mean, you know what anatomy is, but you have to push that piece down, and they're like a lot tighter on this section, and kind of wiggle it back and forth just a little bit. And then on this side, if you can kind of like pry it up a little bit, there we go, it's kind of activating. It's really, really difficult to actually accomplish, and it's like much more trouble than it's worth, in my opinion. And then that will just happen. Yeah. So I don't know how much I want to struggle with this, but the point I was eventually going to make here is it is much, 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 much easier to just rip him off at the mushroom peg rather than actually undo the like Combiner Wars style joint if you want to rip off his legs, which, probably loosens it up over time. But it is really, really difficult to actually undo those because the springs on these on the latches holding them in place are just like a lot tighter than they need to be, which, like, fine. I honestly, I don't really care because I'm never going to use this feature. Like, I'm never going to display him as like a torso lying on the ground. But it's just the mechanism there for getting these off is just like impossible. It's you're much more likely to just rip it off the mushroom peg before you can actually undo that joint. So I'm just going to leave it like that. But yes, you can do this, and then you can bring on your Junkions here and do that. And then why not? Let's also, not accurate to the scene in the movie, but just because we can do it with both of them, let's get Cup ripped apart here as well, so you can have your dead piles of Autobots for the Junkions to fix up. Was that feature worth it? I don't know. I mean, I can't think of anything that the figure really like skimped out on that I would have wanted it to include otherwise. But yeah, it's not really worth it, especially since the one on the legs is like so impossible to actually activate. It's much easier to just like rip it off at the mushroom pegs there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't care for the feature, but also like, once you have it all attached and everything, it's not like the arms are constantly falling off, or the legs are definitely not constantly falling off. So it's pretty ignorable. It's just like an unnecessary feature, in my opinion, that, maybe that the money that took to get those joints in place could have been spent elsewhere and giving him like, more accessories or something. I don't know. Like I said, there's not really anything I can think of that he's like really missing. So, again, it's just a feature that he has that I'm not going to use, and that's fine because all things considered, this is a great figure. It's definitely feels like, to me at least, that it fills out the Commander budget, especially compared to like figures like Rodimus. It's like, obviously Rodimus has the big trailer, but they're about the same in vehicle mode, and then much smaller than in robot mode, and then you just have like the big empty trailer to deal with, which, and I like Rodimus too. I'm not like knocking that figure, but like when you put them side to side with Jetfire, because they're both technically figures that just transform from one mode to the other without any extra gimmick, then he definitely looks like a lot smaller, but he's got a lot more complexity going on in terms of like how the transformation actually works. So I think you're getting a good price there, but obviously up to you. But yeah, no, pretty decent figure. Not a whole lot else to say about him. He's just a really fun toy, all things considered, and yeah, definitely happy to have him. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Make sure to check me out on my Instagram account. That's toys.n.art. And without further ado, here we have yeah, it could be a little bit better, but Transformers Studio Series 86 Commander Class Ultra Magnus.